I suggest you study this.
The views and opinions expressed on the Rosco Show are not necessarily those of Rosco. Assumptions made within this program are not reflective of the position of Rosco. Please do your own research when it comes to any and all information given on this program. Google is your friend. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Rosco Show. I am Rosco, and I am joined by the lovely Iris. So, Iris isn't here tonight. She went out to hang out with some friends, which is understandable. Second episode, she doesn't want to be here. I get it. So anyways, we were supposed to have a show. It was supposed to be called Juggalo Beliefs, and we were supposed to have Will the Juggalo, a.k.a. Ominous the Clown, on the show to discuss the Juggalo beliefs or the mythology of the Dark Carnival, but he canceled he canceled at the last minute. So we got a backup guest, and I'm not going to lie, I am extremely happy with the backup guest that we have. I'm happier with the guest that we have now than what we had set up with Ominous the Clown. And something that I have to address would be the little pops and hisses and whatnot on my microphone. I apologize. I do need to get a pop filter. It's a decent microphone, but listening to those little pops and hisses, that can't be enjoyable for you. So anyways, we're going to get into some of Roscoe's Bible right now, and coming up a little bit later, we will have our interview with our mystery guest who... You know what? Screw it. It's Blake Giunta. He's a Christian apologist, and he is one smart guy. I gotta tell you, man. I've listened to some interviews with him in it before, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit intimidated talking to him. Like I said, he's a Christian apologist, and he has some amazing ideas, some amazing philosophical ideas. I've heard him on other interviews before, and this is gonna be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. So, but for right now, we're gonna get into some of Roscoe's Bible on the Rosco Show. Peace. God created the serpent, and it was the most crafty of any other animal. The serpent said to the woman, "Did God really tell you that you can't eat from any tree in the garden?" "No," said the woman. "We must not eat from the tree in the middle of the garden, for if we do, we will die." "You will not die," the serpent said. "God knows if you eat from it, your eyes will be opened. You will be like gods, knowing good and evil." So in the pursuit of wisdom, the woman ate the fruit. She also gave some to her husband. Now their eyes were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed leaves together and covered themselves. The man and the woman heard God walking in the garden, so they ran and hid. "Where are you?" God called. "I was scared because I was naked, so I ran and hid," replied the man. "Who told you that you were naked?" asked God. "Did you eat from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" "This woman you put here, she gave me the fruit from the tree and I ate it," he replied. God looked at the woman. "What have you done?" "The serpent deceived me," said the woman. God punished the serpent. He said to him, "You are cursed to crawl on your belly and eat dust for the rest of your days. Women and children will fear you, and man will be capable of crushing your head, while all you will be capable of is striking his heel." God punished the woman. He said to her, "You will experience greatly increased pains during childbirth, and your only desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." God punished the man. He said to him, "The ground is now cursed. You have to toil and work for the plants in the field. You will eat your food by the sweat of your brow until you return to the ground. Because you came from the dust, you will also return to the dust." Adam named his wife Eve. God knew that man had the knowledge of good and evil, and didn't want him to eat from the tree of life, for if he did, he would live forever. So God banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. He placed a cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the garden and the tree of life.
This is Pastor Jay. If you'd like to become a member of my flock, or if you're just curious about leaving the atheist faith, you can find me at insert links here. Or you can find my links in the show notes to this podcast.
Hey guys, before we go any further, I just want to send an apology out to Mark Nebo. He's a member of Be Secular, and last week I asked him to send me a commercial for the show, and he said that he could send me a script to read off of, and I very arrogantly, on the air, said, sorry, that's not how we do things on the show. Mark Nebo's a genuinely nice person. Like I said, he's just a member of Be Secular. I'm not even sure if he has access to the commercials, and I had no right being such a dick last week on the show, so sorry, Mark. So hey, check it out. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but the Rosco Show has its own website now. Yep, www.theroscoshow.com. Very easy to remember. It's the title of the show plus .com. Just put it in your URL bar or whatever the heck you call it and check us out. On the website, you can find such things as every episode we've ever done, all 2 of them. You can also find the people that help me with my segments, Pastor J and Spidey Steph. And speaking of Pastor J, I just want to let you know that Pastor J is a Christian, and some people may think he's a little bit crazy. I mean, he likes to give his point of view, and you know what? I'm going to give him a platform because I think he deserves it. So anyways, we're going to get into some of that right now. So let's go with Know the Truth with Pastor J. Check it out, Rosco Show. Chicka chicka what?
Hey sheep, Pastor Jay here from Know the Truth. I decided today to pick an unopened email at random and respond on the fly for you guys. So here goes. Dear Pastor Jay, I was really disappointed with God the other day. I think he hates me, or at the least does not like my hair. As I was walking up the road the other day, I heard a couple of boys giggling. I will not have that language in my videos. As I got closer, I realized that they were laughing at my receding hairline. I stood completely still. I was waiting for God to send his bears to teach the little bastards a lesson, but it never came. Like he did in that story in the Bible. Does God also hate my hairline? Is he up there like some practical joker? I sicked my pit bulls on them after a few minutes. I figured if God was not going to act, I may as well do as God would do. By the way, does your church help with bail money? I am writing this note from jail. They are accusing me of assault, manslaughter, and murder. I was only doing the Lord's work, Pastor Jay. I am sure the pit bulls would not have ripped the throats out of those 2 boys unless they were acting upon God's will. Do you have a fund to help those persecuted for following God's will? Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Mike, what you did was not okay. Why? Well, I'll tell you. What happened to Elijah happened in the Old Testament. Back when God hated kids because he didn't impregnate Mary yet. We don't follow that part of the Bible anymore. Mostly because 95% of the Old Testament is illegal and it'll make you end up where you are right now. The only way you can get away with it is if you're a prophet like me. We only follow certain parts of the Old Testament. You know, the parts that aren't so icky. As far as bail money goes, no. I need that money. We need that money for the church. And for an upcoming space mission in which I'll be visiting God. You seem like a pretty messed up guy, and luckily we don't have you in our church. So I think it'd be best if you lose my email, because by your own admission you were really disappointed in God, so that technically makes you an atheist. Like this one back here, who keeps interrupting my video.
Made it out!
Atheist strike again. Those poor kids.
So we're getting into the fun part of the show, because this is the interview that I do with Blake Giunta, the Christian Apologist. I think it was a fun interview because I felt like I could be very open with Blake. I mean, if I had those burning questions about... we were talking about Exodus, for example, and one of the questions I had was, why was it that God hardened the Pharaoh's heart? And that's just kind of one of those burning questions that you have. You know, and I asked Blake because I know that Blake's going to give me a Blake answer. Like, he's going to give me a smart answer is what I mean to say. And it was a really, really enjoyable interview. And if you listen to it, you can also find out what Blake's favorite movie is. So that's kind of intense, too. But we also touch on the problem of evil and a few other things. And as you can tell from this interview, I'm not 100% educated. But regardless, it was a fun interview. So right after this commercial,
Hey, I'm Dana, the founder of SprinkleOfJesus.com, where God is doing extraordinary things for ordinary people just like me and you.
I refuse to be held down by sin.
All my friends are pressuring me to have sex when I got to high school.
I grew up practicing Islam.
I used to suffer from depression.
I looked for love in all the wrong places.
God gives me something this world could never.
A sprinkle of Jesus helped me.
Log on to SprinkleOfJesus.com. It will change your life.
welcome back to the Rosco Show. I am sitting here with Blake Giunta. Sorry about that, Blake. From Dallas, Texas. He is a Christian apologist. How are you doing tonight, Blake?
Doing very good. How are you?
I am doing excellent. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast, man. It's an honor for me to have you on here.
Oh God, it's a pleasure.
Well, I've heard some interviews you've done before, and I am blown away by some of the responses that you have to some of these atheists. When they come in and they question you, you have some very, very intelligent philosophical answers for them. So before we get started, can I just get you to tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I don't really have any professional education in terms of apologetics. I'm just an enthusiast, but the question has always captivated me, right? I mean, I don't think there's many things out there that you can think about that are more important, whether it's true or false, right? I mean, so a lot of people are devoting their lives to this issue, and that's not something you really want to invest so much in if it's false. And on the other hand, if it's true and you don't invest in it, then of course that's pretty devastating as well. So it's a big issue. Part of it was also coming into contact with just people that I respect that have really, challenged me and helped me to think through things, and it's just sort of created a friendship among people with different viewpoints, and it's just progressed me forward. So I don't know what other background you might be curious about, but
for example, how long have you been a Christian?
I have been. It's a tough question. I think probably I became a Christian about 15 years ago.
Okay, and what was it that made you want to become a Christian apologist, want to defend all these ideas?
Apologetics played a role, I think, in my conversion. So I've grown up in a Christian home, but it was more a situation where I would call myself Christian just because that's how I was raised, right? And I knew that if I had been raised a Muslim, then I would be affirming the Muslim beliefs. And I didn't think that there was anything particularly superior about Christianity. I didn't think it was true in the same sense that, the stuff that I learned in science class is true, for example, or frankly any of my school classes. It was more of a decoration that I put on top of my reality, and it was cultural very much in that sense. But our youth group in high school went to Lake Point Church, and I heard an apologist named Vodi Bakum give a talk, and it was just a very new way of encountering this information. And I was like, wow, this, looking back, I don't think the arguments are particularly persuasive. I think like a sophisticated atheist could turn them over pretty easily or give a good challenge to them. But at the time, it was like, oh my gosh, this is true. And that's what sparked my interest. I went home and I found an apologetics website called carm.org, and I just devoured it, really. And that got me back when there was, I don't know if you remember ICQ. It was like one of the first chat programs.
I do, yes. Uh-oh.
That's right. So what I would do is I would find one way you could search for a friend, remember, is you could search for them by their religion. So I would find like an atheist or someone, and I would just ask them, why do you, and it wasn't to debate them. I was just like curious. It was interesting to me. And so I would just get into conversations, and, if they said, man, you're really nice, you're not like the other Christians, then, that was a pat on my back, and that was kind of what I strove for more than anything.
You didn't take that as like a backhanded compliment. Oh, you're really nice, not like the other Christians around.
Right. No, I took it as a genuine compliment, and it's part of what I strove for. So, just through that, I started getting into conversations, and then I found a chat room and got into more conversations, and it was, like I mentioned before, I eventually came across some people who were a little more sophisticated in philosophy, and that really sparked my interest. And through that, I became more and more convinced that this actually, this stuff is legit. And the more convinced I became of that, the more convinced I became of the value of spreading that, what I felt to be the truth. Because of course there's, it's high stakes. So yeah, that's where I'm, and it's just progressed until today where I'm starting to get into it professionally. That's the hope, but I'd like to get there.
So how old would you say you were when you were in the youth group when you first saw the Christian Apologist?
Probably around 15.
Okay, so that's the same age when you started going into the chat rooms, the Christian chat rooms, and on ICQ, and listening to the different ideas from different people?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my numbers might be a little off, but I think that's right.
Okay, so basically you're saying it wasn't just you sitting alone in a room reading a Bible, coming up with these ideas yourself. You had people walking you through it, people helping you through it then?
I wouldn't say that there were, at least for that first part. I mean, yes, I had Vody give his presentation, but otherwise it was me going to this website and just reading, and then the next phase was talking to people who disagreed with me, right? And then at that next phase where I started getting into a chat room, I don't know if there was anybody necessarily that guided me. I had a question here and there, but a lot of it, if you're gonna really learn things, you've just got to get down and dirty and do it yourself and just read a bunch of stuff, and that's pretty much what did it for me.
Right. Okay. So was there any point where anybody was giving you any information or you were asking any questions and the information or the answers weren't making any sense to you, or was it always maybe it will fit eventually, or what was your thinking on that, or did that ever happen?
Are you talking about Christians or atheists that I'm speaking to?
Just in general, Christians, for example, would they give you some form of information from the Bible that was really hard to take in?
I mean, I know the answer is yes. Thinking of examples probably isn't so easy. I'd have to think about it to pull out specific examples for you. Nothing that was extremely prominent off the top of my head.
So there was nothing that you thought maybe that's not true, or maybe that's incorrect, or...
Oh man, I know that there are several instances of that. So how about the transcendental argument for God's existence? I don't know if you've heard of that one, but I remember that was one of the on the site that I went to a lot. That's a big argument that's put forward by the apologist there, and I still to this day have not been convinced by it.
I'm sorry, what was that argument?
That basically says, let me see if I can remember how he does it, because the challenge is, it's called the transcendental argument for God's existence. And the way it's put forward, what makes it difficult in part is because it's not a deductively valid argument. So in logic class, one of the first things you learn to do is distinguish between a sound argument and a valid argument. A valid argument is an argument which at least has premises which entail the conclusion. If you grant the premises, the conclusion is nebulous. And a sound argument is an argument which is valid, but whose premises are also true. Because you can have a valid argument like, if grass is green, then God exists, and then you can say grass is green, and therefore God exists. That's a valid argument, but it's, you wouldn't say it's sound. Why? Because the first premise, if grass is green, then God exists, doesn't seem like something that, would be very defensible. So in this case, the argument wasn't even valid, and so I couldn't even make sense of the argument, and it was supposed to be a deductive argument. Here's how I remember it as best I can. It's something like, what are the laws of logic, right? They aren't material things, so they must be immaterial, and then it says something, they have to be located inside of a mind, and I guess that the end of the argument is that mind has to be God.
Right.
So it's an argument along those lines, and most of the way the argument gets presented is just in terms of a series of questions to the non-believer, just asking him what are the laws of logic, and just continually pushing that questioning. So maybe there's a deductively valid form of it out there, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. All right. So I know that you have debated, maybe not debated, but you've had discussions with many atheists. Is there any questions they've ever asked you that just stumped you, that you don't have an answer to? You had to say to yourself or say to them, I really don't have an answer to that?
In these situations, I'll most of the time always have an answer, but the issue is going to be whether the answer is like considered a sacrifice on my part. In other words, okay, I'll have an answer to that. It's a bullet biting answer. I'm not the happiest with it, but it's still an answer nonetheless. Usually that's what you're going to find. It's most of the time I won't say, like, I can't even think of anything that can blunt the force of that argument. It's just how much can you blunt it? Okay,
so when you do answer those questions, do you state, like, I'm not sure about this, or I could be wrong about this first, or do you feel like you have to give an answer regardless whether you feel it's right or wrong?
It might, in this case, be better to give an example so that we're not talking about different situations.
Okay,
but,
good idea.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, because of course I'll say I don't know all the time. But usually what ends up happening is someone's making an argument against Christianity. And if they're making an argument against Christianity, they're presenting some piece of data that is unexpected or doesn't fit well with my worldview. And if I just say I don't know, that's basically giving the argument its full force.
Right.
So at least I'll try to say something like, look, even if, like, let's say someone's presenting a problem of evil, and I may not know the reason that God allows some instance of evil, but at least I'll say something like, look, this is the kind of thing which, if God did have a reason, we wouldn't necessarily expect to know God's reason. So I can blunt things like that. Alternatively, I can try to say, well, look, here's some ideas about why God might permit that given instance of evil. Here's Theodicy 1, here's Theodicy 2. And again, a lot of times in the case of these arguments, I can still admit that this is evidence against my position. It's just a question of how much can I blunt that evidence. And then, on the other hand, how much is the person I'm speaking with, how much can he blunt my evidence? And the one who blunts the least loses.
Right. Okay. So what is your opinion about people giving concrete answers? Like you said that sometimes you have to say you don't know, but you still have to answer, right? I mean, you have to... So what is your opinion about Christians out there where they feel that they say that they do have concrete answers for certain questions that, well, you and me both probably shouldn't be answered or shouldn't be attempted to be answered in the way that they do?
I think it's okay to offer answers. It's just you should do it tentatively. You should say, look, for all we know, and then insert your answer.
Right.
Something like that. And say, you say, look, there's probably more to this than I'm aware, but here's a thought. And then you throw the thought out, and it's a defensive thought. So I wouldn't discourage people from giving answers. I would just encourage them to be modest when they present those answers.
So does that bother you when they do give concrete answers then? Or when they claim it is?
Yeah, I mean, that's just, in dialogue partners in general on either side. I'm sure you'd agree, right? You want to be modest in your presentation of information.
Right. Okay, so I've heard you on one in particular atheist show. What is it that makes you... I know you're an apologist, but some of these people have some tough questions. When you do go on these shows, do you prepare yourself for these questions, or do you just go in not knowing what's going to be asked and just kind of do it on the fly?
Well, so the show that I think you heard me on was Dogma Debate, and on that show, like, we'll have a topic, and I think I've been on there 3 times, and the topic will be one thing, but it's radio. It's radio. You don't necessarily know where it's going to go. So I'll prepare for what I'm talking about, but a lot of times the conversation can trail off in a direction, that I'm not going to prepare for necessarily on topic. But again, that's how radio works sometimes.
Right.
So I prepare the best I can for what we're advertising ourselves as talking about.
Right. Okay. So, about a lot of the tough atheist questions that they have for you. So, like, for example, the problem of evil. I'm sure I don't have to give that argument. But what would your response be to that? I'm not 100% sure if you did answer that on previous interviews, but just out of curiosity, what would be your response to that?
Well, so there are different kinds of problems of evil. So I'd probably ask you to try to articulate the problem of evil as you see it. So, like as you see the problem of evil, how would you frame it?
How would I frame the problem of evil?
Yeah. Do you just want to say that, look, if God existed, we would expect there to be less evil than there is. Why? Well, because the world would be better without the evil, and God in his goodness would want to make the world better. And so, you can kind of deductively see how you would expect the world to be better as a result of that. Is that the kind of problem of evil you're presenting? Or
well, here's the thing, though, Blake. I don't know God.
Mm-hmm.
So you say, if God existed, there should be less evil in the world. With my idea of God, there would be no evil in the world because I don't see the need for. You know what? Like I said, I'm trying my best to not like say anything like absolutely terrible or horrible. But,
yeah. No. Oh.
Like you know what I mean, right? I don't want to get into like the murdering infants and all that stuff, but basically that's the problem is why are these terrible things happening when they don't need to be happening? And I'm pretty sure your argument is that they do need to be happening and that it's God's will, but
I wouldn't go that far yet. So are you get to make a choice here in terms of the argument from evil you're making. It sounds like you're wanting to go for a very strong argument from evil almost, which says that, look, if God existed, there would not even be one instance of evil.
No, that's what I'm saying. If I wake up in the morning and I stub my toe, to me that is not evil. To me, that's like, crap happens. It happens. You know what I mean? But there is like some things where, it steps over the line. And, I could sit here and make a list, but that type of evil where it goes over the line and I think you and me can agree. I don't know if you and me and everybody else would agree, but I think you and me agree that there is a line, and past that line is what we would call pretty much just, pure evil happenstances.
Well, I mean, I would say that stubbing your toe it's just a mitigated, it's just not as strong. I mean, you want to almost frame it as an argument from suffering. Usually that's a more accurate way of depicting what people are actually calling attention to. It's, if a good God exists, why does suffering exist? And stubbing your toe is an instance of suffering. It may not be a very strong one, but it's still an instance of suffering. I mean, you could have a very severe stubbing of the toe, and I think your question would apply to that kind of stubbing, right? I mean, that would, that sends you to the emergency room. Would you say that that's a kind of suffering that God, if he existed, would probably prevent?
Stubbing my toe and ending up in the emergency room?
Mm-hmm. We're talking about a really bloody affair. Let's say you stub it on something that's sharp and...
You know what? No, if it's not fatal, or maybe not even. You know what? This is a tough argument, man. Wow. Yeah, you know what? If I stub my toe and, I rip it half off and I have to go to the emergency room, I'm not going to say, God could have prevented that, because that's something that I could have prevented. You know what I mean? It
was an accident. I mean, it's something maybe you couldn't, anybody would have been in that same situation, would have stubbed their toe in the exact same way, because you were not rationally held accountable for that. Maybe it happened in the dark, or maybe, while you were looking one way, a rock, tumbled down a little bit and you didn't hear it. And I mean, it doesn't have to be your fault.
Right. So it doesn't have to be my fault to be evil, then, is what you're saying.
To be suffering, right. To be a kind of suffering where if a good God existed, surely he would stop it.
What do you think of this quote, Blake? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Agree, disagree?
I disagree. I see pain and suffering as virtually synonymous.
Okay. So, just back to the evil question. There are some things that people cannot help.
Yeah.
People are dying of certain diseases that they can't help. Some of them had it since birth. There's nothing they could have done to prevent it. There's nothing that their parents could have done to prevent it. So to me, that is a different type of evil than me ripping my toe half off and ending up in the hospital.
Okay.
Wouldn't you say? Or would you lump those in the same category?
Part of me actually would. I see those both as natural, under the category of natural evils. So that classically you distinguish things between, you put on the one hand natural evils, which are things like, yes, you stubbing your toe or natural disasters or diseases. All of those typically go in the same category. And then on the other hand, you have the evils that are a result of free will typically. So, one person rapes another person or, tortures another person. And that's usually the type of free will that is allegedly addressed by this free will defense. But the stubbing the toe and the disease that you're born with or disfigurement, those typically all go into the natural evil or natural suffering section. So I don't know if there's at least I can't pick out a huge difference between the two.
But so stubbing my toe is natural because I'm just a fallible human, and
it's not the result of a decision from an agent, from a free will agent. It's something. Yeah, it's not like the result of an evil decision from an agent.
It's not. When people are born with life-threatening diseases, then you're saying that God has nothing to do with that, then?
I didn't say anything about that, but incidentally, I don't think, if you're asking me, hey, did God create them that way, then no. I think that was just part of the natural order. It was just a deterministic thing based on, the genetics and environmental factors in which the child was conceived.
Right. So God just kind of like created nature and said, now things are just going to go with the flow of how I created it, and that's what you're saying then?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I believe miracles occur, but I do believe that God has set a natural order in place, and yes, that happens through this natural order. Okay,
that makes sense, I guess. So you said that you believe that miracles are real. Can you give me an example of a miracle?
I'm a Christian, so I think Jesus resurrected from the dead.
Okay, yes, I guess that would be the miracle you go with, but
the ultimate miracle.
Okay, besides the resurrection or anything biblical, anything taken from the Bible, is there any miracles outside the Bible that you want to speak on?
I do think that these miracles have occurred, but none of them that I'd be willing to really stand by. There's a book by a well-known scholar, a guy named Craig Keener. He wrote a 2-volume book called Miracles, published by an academic press, heavily footnoted. And he's a Christian, and he looked into this topic of miracles himself, and he's logged at least evidence for these miracles, and he's become more convinced of miracles than he was when he started out. So I think I read some of that, and in some of those cases, which none of them I can articulate to you right now, I think, that could very well have happened. I imagine at least some of those are genuine miracles, but I'm not confident in any of them. So I think miracles occur throughout the world, but I don't know, which ones are legit.
So when it comes to reading works like that, you just kind of keep an open mind about it, right? So you're not saying that for sure these are real or for sure they're not real. You're just kind of saying, I can see this happening type thing.
Yeah, and that's in part because I haven't looked in depth to any of them.
Perfect. So you haven't researched any of them, so you're just kind of keeping an open mind, like I was saying.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, Blake. Just on a personal note here, man, to get away from religion and Christianity, what do you do on your free time, man? What TV shows do you like to watch? I'm not gonna lie, I'm not used to talking to a Christian apologist. And I want to get into your head when it comes to religion and the Bible, but I want to get into your head when it comes to just everyday life too, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So I like the typical movies. One thing that makes me unique is I like to watch anime, Japanese anime, in the original language, subtitles. Yeah. So I'm a bit of a nerd in that regard. I like to watch some anime a few people might know what Eureka 7 is, Death Note, a couple of these things I enjoy. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but I guess when I do watch things, that's normally what I'm watching. Tell you what, I started watching House of Cards. That was fun. What's that other one that I can't remember the name of it, but that's been good.
So no American Horror Story or The Walking Dead or nothing like that?
No. I'm not a huge fan of the horror genre.
No. Okay, so actually, what is your opinion on shows like that? Like, do you think that they're hurting society or helping, or doesn't really matter to you?
You know, The Walking Dead is very good. I don't think they. I mean, again, I haven't studied the sociological effects of America watching things like that. Maybe it is bad, but I don't think so. Off the top of my head, I don't think it's an issue.
Okay, well, the new Noah movie. Did you see that?
I did see that. Yep.
And what did you think of that?
It was weird. On the one hand, I didn't think it was a very good movie.
No.
But yeah, it was strange, I guess. Yeah. Any particular aspect? I mean, yeah, I was like, Noah's a little weird. Like he's running around the ark trying to kill the kid. Sorry for the spoilers there. So yeah, it was just a little weird. It was just like sitting back and watching it. It's like, what is going on? I remember kind of feeling like that and watching it. I don't know. What did you think?
I remember watching it and thinking I knew the Nephilim were rock monsters. I knew it all along.
That's right.
But yeah. No, I was expecting a lot more. I guess you can't take a story that's that short and turn it into a full-length motion picture. You have to add some additional story. I just don't think they did it right.
And then have you seen they did that Moses one now? Well, I forget what was the name of that.
That's Exodus.
Yeah.
I can't remember I haven't seen that one yet. Have you seen that?
I did see that one. It was better, but it still wasn't great. Which again, the reviews are saying pretty straightforwardly, not that great. But
I heard that in that movie they were trying to the plagues. They were trying to make them seem like they were natural events, like they weren't like the locusts. They were trying to say that a gust of wind. It was all like a natural event. A gust of wind blew it up. I mean, they were trying to make it less godly than what the Bible said it was.
That doesn't come out of the movie. That's like a really old hypothesis. Like I'm kind of partial to a lot of that. So the idea is you start with this river of blood, right? And then what would you expect to happen after the river turns to blood? I mean, that's going to affect the sort of the ecosystem, right? Well, one of the first things that's going to happen is that the frogs are going to basically leave. Okay,
wow,
you're going to have right, and then of course they're going to die, and when they die, you're going to have tons of flies. What's that going to do? Well, that's going to bring diseases, boils. So it's one thing after another. It actually is a pretty logical, natural progression.
I have never ever made that connection, man. But yeah, that is a very good point.
Yeah. But only thing but at the end of it, one thing that isn't natural is the firstborn. Remember, every firstborn is killed, and so that's interesting. A guy named on the History Channel, Yaakov something tried to say that, well, maybe what he's wanting to explain the last one naturally. Maybe what happened is that this gas was released from something, and the firstborns would sleep on the bottom bunk, and the gas, that's where the gas would settle. So it's probably on the bottom bunk. And so that's why the firstborn died in each of these cases, is because he would have been on the bottom bunk. So that didn't convince a lot of people. But
well, that would make sense, yeah.
Yeah. But it is, it is an interesting progression. That would actually speak to the authenticity of the account, ironically, whereas a lot of scholars want to doubt that the Exodus happened at all. That would seem to suggest that it's rooted in history, interestingly enough.
Well, I mean, you can see how they might want to question that. I mean, the 10 plagues, it does seem a little bit far-fetched if you're looking at it from a historical standpoint.
What do you mean?
Obviously, you and me look at history different. I mean, you look at the Bible as being a historical book.
Oh, right. So you're just saying, look, it's a miracle, and historians, typically don't want to go in for miraculous explanations when they don't have to. Wait, what about you? What kind of movies are you watching?
What kind of movies am I watching? Oh, yeah. What's the last movie I watched? I just told my girlfriend to watch Friday with Ice Cube. I don't know if you know that movie or not.
No, I don't.
No, what was the last movie I watched? Let me think. I think it's been a while.
It's not. You asked about the horror genre, so now I'm wondering if that's something that you.
Oh, I do watch American Horror Story, but the season's over now, so. I'm not too big into horror. There's just it has to like I like the Evil Dead movies and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure you're not into those, but no, man. To be honest with you, I don't know the last movie I watched.
Well, what movies do you like? That would be more.
I am a huge Bill Hicks fan. So his documentary, American, the Bill Hicks story, is probably my favorite movie.
Oh.
Fifth Element. Yeah. What's your favorite movie, Blake?
Fifth Element. Yeah, that's such a good movie.
Oh, awesome. You like that movie too?
Yeah. My
Yes.
My favorite movie, though, is, have you seen The Prestige?
I have. You know what? We just watched that movie, me and my girlfriend, not too long ago. Me and Iris.
There you go.
I made her watch it because, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite movie. So, I'll
Awesome.
watch my favorite movie.
And you know what? That is
It's even better the second time you watch it.
Oh, definitely, because then you see all the little. Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away, but.
Yeah.
I'm afraid they have to believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. There's no other choice. They've got to go back to the Jesus of the cross. Let me just say one thing, though, about their paradise. Earlier, Shabir said that they are able to drink wine in heaven. I find that interesting because when you go back to the Quran in Surah 590 and also Surah 219, it states very, very succinctly that Satan is the creator of wine. Now, why would you have something created by Satan waiting for them in heaven?
It does not say that. No, I'm sorry. It says that it is the amal shaitan. It is the work of the shaitan that uses the wine to create enmity and hatred among people. You have to read it carefully. Don't misquote my scripture in my presence.
Go read it.
Official, we did it, guys. We caught a real dragon. Yep. So there's no need to no longer believe in dragons anymore because it's been proven to be true. Now, in the Epic Times newspaper in Mongolia, there was a fisherman who claims he caught a dragon while fishing. Now, this dragon is about 3 meters long, and it looks like one of those, like the Chinese dragons. You know, if you've ever seen The Never-Ending Story, the dragon, I think his name's Falcor. I could be totally wrong about that. Anyways, it looks kind of like that. So they sent the dragon to Beijing for testing, and they discovered that the fur on the dragon was rabbit fur. The man still wants to keep the dragon, believing that it will bring him good luck, which, you know what? I don't blame him. I mean, if I caught a dragon and they told me it was made of rabbit fur, I really wouldn't care. You know, that might point out to me that the dragon, you know, could be fake, but that's purely speculation. So anyways, according to Chinese legend, if a dragon appears, it means something big is going to happen. Now, this was last year that he caught the dragon, and, you know, a few big things have happened since then. One word, Ferguson. Yep. So anyways, guys, yeah, we caught a dragon. Hooray! No, but seriously, these stories are funny to me. I am fascinated in different beliefs and whatnot, but when it comes to catching a dragon, I mean, come on. So anyways, we're going to get into Spidey Steph's segment right now, so take it away, Steph.
Hey guys. Unfortunately, I've had a bit of a setback. Last Saturday, I ended up in Emerge again with the severe abdominal cramping. I know this is because of something I haven't been listening to. I had a revelation and I thought, how am I going to go off my meds if I can't even seem to go off all these bad foods that I'm addicted to? You know, I'm addicted to sugary, salty crap. If I can't change my diet, how am I going to change going off this medication? You know, my body's addicted to the bad food as much as it is the medication, if, you know, not more. It's hard to change your diet around when you've been eating the same way your whole life. A medication that my doctor had given me was reacting badly, not only with the way I was eating, but my womanly cycle, and he actually gave me the opposite medication of what I needed, and this played a major role in how I've been feeling and how I've been going through these abdominal pains. A mixture of that and my diet, it really kind of fucked things up for me. So now luckily I know that, so that's a positive. I wanted to make this vlog for is not only to update what's been going on with me, because I feel like I'm probably going to wait a bit longer before I go off my medication now, because I need to adjust to all these things that are happening to me now, and I definitely need to change my diet around. Not a lot of people know, but the diet plays a huge role in how you think and how you feel. And, you know, if your body's not happy, you're not going to be happy. And whether you're someone who's cursed with a disease, an illness, you know, whatever it is, you know that, or maybe you don't know, but most of you have found out by now that diet plays a huge role in all of this. And sometimes you feel helpless, because how the hell do you stop eating the way you know how to eat? You know, what I want to say, not only to inspire myself to look back on, but maybe other people out there, whatever you're struggling with, anxiety, you know, some type of illness, whether it's mental or physical, I want you to know that someone great once told me, the hero lies in you. And it's true, because when it comes down to it, it is the power of the mind. The power of the mind is really great. And I have brought horrible things into my life by just thinking so negatively and worrying that they will happen, and worrying so much that it will happen. It has happened. Floor in pain, you know, it brings you to your knees. You feel like nothing can help, nothing can save you, no one can save you, no fucking doctor, no person in your life, maybe not even yourself. But it's true, you yourself, you're the only one who can save yourself. And I myself know that when the pain escalates to the point where you feel like you can't handle it, it's almost impossible to turn that around, and you kind of just, you have to allow it to pass. You have to go through that pain, but don't take it. Don't sit there and take it. It may seem like there's a lot of people out there who have it a lot easier, and I think about that a lot. I really do. But the reason why I think that people like us have to go through what we go through is because we're meant to. Things happen for a reason. Someone else once told me that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And everything is a learning experience, no matter how painful it may be. You're supposed to use those tools to try and help others. Maybe look at it in that way. Sometimes you learn in a harsh way, especially if you won't listen to yourself. You know inside what you have to do. You know it. Deep down inside, whether you're listening to it or not, you know it. It's there, and you can't lie to yourself. You got to stop lying to yourself. You got to get healthy, because if you're not healthy, it's going to fuck with your whole life. And if you have health, you have everything. You really do. You know, you don't need money. You don't need things. You need your health, though. You need your health to get through things. And there are people out there who have these diseases that there are no cures for. There's things, you know, that are really horrible, you know, and it's harder for those people, for sure. And you need to give a lot of respect to those people, because they fight on a daily basis. They feel like shit on a daily basis, and they're still walking, they're still living. That alone gives me hope. And so even if those people aren't out there making vlogs like me or preaching good shit, or, you know, maybe they seem negative, like, why wouldn't you? You know, why wouldn't you feel like you're drowning when you feel like shit? And I know what it's like. I know what it's like to feel so trapped and alone and feeling like there's no answers. I've been going through that for a while now, and maybe I don't have it as bad as others, but I definitely have as much as I can possibly handle. And sometimes when I think that this is all I can handle, it gets even worse. And there's nothing you can do about it but hold on. You can't give up. That's not an option. And I think that we're given these negative physical things as a result of what's happening in today's world. They're not treating us well. The food supply, you know, it's really bad. It's affecting a lot of people. A lot of people are developing new allergies, you know, gluten intolerance, celiac disease, stuff like that. It's affecting our kidneys, like all of our insides. It's just destroying us, and it almost seems helpless. But instead of sitting there and crying, we have to get up. We have to get out of bed. We have to, you know, we have to get dressed. We have to do this, because if we don't, everyone's going to start to lose hope. It only takes one person to rise up and say, hey, I don't care this shit I'm going through may be awful, it may be painful, I can't stand it, but I'm gonna get up anyways. I'm gonna keep fighting. I may not find answers for a long time, but I'm gonna find them eventually, and I'm gonna keep going no matter what. And so that's what I have to do myself, and that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna find out what diet I need. You know, it's really hard. It's kind of an elimination process. I find that a lot of foods upset me greatly. The pain escalates for sure, and I need to do a process of elimination, and yeah, that is the shittiest thing ever. You just want the answers and you want to be done with the fucking pain. I know. I really do know, and I know that it fucking sucks so much, and there are days when, you know, I wish that I was just unconscious because I don't like feeling the way I'm feeling. When you feel ill physically, it can fuck with you so much that you just don't, you don't see a point. But there's a point. The point is to find the answers, to keep fighting, no matter what happens, no matter how bad it gets. You're going to give hope to someone out there, even if it's just one person. That person will then rise up, and then another person, and another person, and another person. Don't sit here and take what they're doing to us. Don't sit here and take whatever negativities in your life. Don't let it bring you down, because if you do, then you're letting it win. Don't let it win. You're gonna win. Rise like the phoenix from the ashes. Do it. Just do it. You know that you have the answers deep within you, and even if you need to meditate or just kind of do some soul searching to kind of find what those answers are, or maybe you're just not admitting them to yourself, because the answer isn't always easy. It can be something you don't want to face, you don't want to deal with, but you gotta, because in the meantime, it's just going to get worse until you deal with it. So right now I'm trying to deal with it, and it's been one of the hardest things I've been through. Change your thoughts even if you don't believe them. Even if you don't believe them, make them positive. You will start bringing things into your life with the power of intention. And I know this. I know this for sure, because in a way my anxiety has been a gift to me and showing me that the more I focus on things, the more they come true. And even though they've been negative things a lot of the time, how can they not work the other way too? And so I guess my journey now has become more about proving that to the world, or to whoever the hell's gonna watch this, whether it's one person or 69 people. It doesn't really matter. Someone's gonna take it to heart. Someone's gonna realize, and that's all that matters to me. If I can't save myself, I hope that I can at least save someone else. But I know that I can save myself, because it is us who fights for ourselves. No one else can help you the way you can help yourself. And you may not love yourself, but you better start, because if you don't, then you're gonna find yourself stuck. So if you're stuck, maybe try something different. Why not? Just try it. What's the point on focusing on the negative and perhaps bringing that into reality, when in the meantime, even if you feel like shit, you can try to say tomorrow will be better, or, you know, even in the next 5 minutes may be better. It's hard to believe, yes, of course it is, especially when you wake up every day feeling like complete shit, but you can feel better, and I believe this. I believe this in my soul and my heart, and with everything I know. You know, if these are perhaps my last days on earth for whatever reason, let's just say, why not go out being happy, or doing the best I can to be happy? Why not go out fighting and being an inspiration? So that's pretty much what's been going on with me. I'm hoping that things will get better. I know that there's been bad and good days, and a lot of bad days lately, but I'm gonna keep going, and I hope that you'll keep going too.
I hope that as you make your way to the Christian gospel, that you'll take it more seriously than you otherwise would have. God says He wants you to love Him with all your heart and all your mind.
Welcome back, everybody. Maybe like a little spoiler alert. I think things are looking up for Steph next week. These are recorded in advance, so I think this one was a couple months old. I'm not 100% sure on that. So things are looking up next week. So tune in next week to see what's going on with Steph there. And you'll notice in the interview I say that my favorite movie is American, the Bill Hicks story. I think I said that because I'm such a huge fan of Bill Hicks. I wouldn't say that's my favorite movie, actually. Just off the top of my head, that's the one I picked. I really don't have a favorite movie. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is really good. I really like Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese's Pulp Fiction by Quentin Tarantino. There's a whole laundry list of movies that I love. But yeah, I think it's just that I'm so fascinated with Bill Hicks, or such a huge fan of Bill Hicks, that's what I said was my favorite movie. It's definitely my favorite documentary. But yeah, check out Bill Hicks, everybody. Whether you're a Christian, an atheist, a believer, a non-believer, it doesn't matter. He has very, very smart comedy. He does incorporate religion and politics into his comedy, but he does it in a very tasteful way. So I really encourage you to go check out Bill Hicks. Also, check out treesearch.org. That's the site that Blake was talking about. That's the link that he's sending me for me to check it out. It's a Christian Apologist website. So definitely, if you're interested in Christian apologetics or anything along those lines, go check that website out. I'm also being told that the name of it's being changed to Belief Map. So maybe in a little while, if you Google Belief Map, that's what you'll want to search for there. So we're going to get into a little bit of Roscoe's Bible study here, and this would be the story of Cain and Abel. So check that out right now. Adam and Eve had 2 children, which they named Cain and Abel. Abel became a shepherd, while Cain became a farmer. At one point in time, God wanted an offering from Cain and Abel. So Cain brought God an offering of fruit, while Abel brought an offering of fat from some of the firstborn of his flock. God looked with favor on Abel's offering, but not on Cain's. So Cain became angry. God said to Cain, "Do not be angry. If you do what is right, you will be accepted. If you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It wants you. You must master it." Cain didn't listen to God's words and attacked and killed his brother Abel while in the field one day. "Where is your brother Abel?" God asked Cain. "I don't know," replied Cain. "Am I his keeper?" "What have you done?" cried God. "Listen, I know what you did to your brother. Now you are under a curse. The land will no longer produce vegetation for you, and you will be forced to become a restless wanderer of the earth." "That's too much," said Cain. "If I become a restless wanderer of the earth, whoever finds me will try to kill me." "No," said God. "If anyone kills you, he will suffer vengeance 7-fold." God put a mark on Cain so no man that found him would try to kill him. Cain went and lived in the land of Nod. He was building a city when he had a child with his wife, who was named Enoch. He named the city he was building after his son Enoch. Enoch was the father of Arad. Arad was the father of Methuselah. Methuselah was the father of Methuselah. Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Lamech had 2 wives, Ada and Zillah. Ada gave birth to 2 sons named Jabal and Jubal. Jabal represented herdsmen. Jubal represented musicians. Zillah gave birth to a son and daughter named Tubal-Cain and Naamah. One day, Lamech said to his wives, "I have killed a young man for injuring me. If Cain is to be avenged 7-fold, then I shall be avenged 70-fold. At this time, Adam and Eve had another son they named Seth. Adam believed God granted Seth to them to replace Abel. Seth was the father of Enosh. It was at this time people began to call on God.
Hey guys, hopefully you can hear me. It's quite the windy day out, so not sure how this is going to work out, but I just felt like recording my next vlog. I went and saw a nutritionist today. I'm going to be working with her over 6 months, changing my diet and kind of cleansing out my insides, not in the hard way, just through food. And I'm hoping that that'll set me on the right track and I can stop feeling these abdominal pains and stuff like that. And it's also supposed to help with anxiety. You know, the stomach is the second brain, contributes to a lot of those thoughts. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on now. So for the next 6 months, that's what I'll be working on, and I'll definitely update on vlogs and stuff, and hopefully the sunshine gets everyone feeling a little bit better, and I kind of feel like it already is. And yeah, so I'm gonna be holding off going off my medication until I got this whole diet thing down pat. She said it's more than likely to change things for me, so we'll see how it goes, and I'll definitely be letting you know.
Well, guys, the show is definitely more than half over now. After we go to commercial, we're going to get into the last half of the interview that I did with Blake Giunta. And I really want you guys to let me know how I'm doing. So I do have Facebook, so hit up facebook.com/The Rosco Show. That's our page. Maybe leave some comments on there. Just tell me what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show. I mean, do you like Roscoe's Bible segments? Should I get rid of them? Are they stupid? Do you like Pastor J? Should I get rid of him? I'm not going to get rid of Pastor J. I mean, Spidey Steph segments, are they helping, hurting? What's going on, guys? So just hit up my Facebook and let me know what you think of the show. It would be much, much appreciated. I've been getting some good feedback, especially on the first episode. There's a few things that I do need to work on. First of all, I know it's not cool to come on your radio show and start talking about all the things that you think is right or wrong with your show, but I'm depending on you guys. Really, I mean, also you can hit up the website, www.theroscoshow.com. There's a contact form there. Just shoot me an email. Tell me what you like, what you don't like about the show. And we're always looking for guests. And I really want to get a Pleiadian. I mentioned that last week. I don't know why. I have a million questions for somebody who believes that they're a Pleiadian. Of course, no discrimination, or as little as I can. I mean, sometimes it's hard to keep your mouth shut, especially when certain things are said. But anyways, we're going to go to a commercial right now, and when we get back, we will be jumping into the last half of the interview that we have with Blake Giunta, the Christian Apologist, so stick around.
What really happened to the dinosaurs? This is Ken Hand, whose ministry has produced the Answers Bible curriculum. You know, evolutionists use dinosaurs more than almost anything else to indoctrinate children into millions of years and evolutionary ideas. Evolutionists claim dinosaurs evolved over 200 million years ago, that no humans ever lived with them. They believe the rock layers and fossil bones developed over long ages, and that some mysterious event led to the extinction of dinosaurs. But the Bible gives a different history. God tells us that he created all land animals the same day he created man, about 6,000 years ago. And what's more, there are even dinosaurs on Noah's Ark because God told Noah to take pairs of every kind of land animal. You see, dinosaurs are no mystery at all if you accept the Bible's account of creation.
What else does the Bible say about dinosaurs? Well, visit our new exhibit inside the Creation Museum, and also visit our website, answersingenesis.org.
When it comes to the Exodus story, I don't want to, if you give me a wrong answer or a poor answer, a poor answer in my opinion, it might be a good answer in your opinion. I'm not going to continue to question you on it. But God hardening the Pharaoh's heart. Why do you think, in your opinion, why did that go down that way?
So one thing that a lot of people point out is that God only starts hardening Pharaoh's heart after Pharaoh hardens. It says Pharaoh hardens his own heart, several times, and from there, God says, he takes it further, basically. So Pharaoh's already heaped judgment on himself, and God continues to harden his heart so that God can continue to send these plagues, and he says, and display his glory. Which would be, sort of this light that would indicate to the nations that God was with the Jews.
So it's kind of like, sorry, Pharaoh, you already started down this path, you have to continue?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think Pharaoh was already judged, right? I mean, if anything, it was, God let him live a little bit longer. I mean, he didn't kill him at the end of the story, but, right. He just furthered things so he can continue to display his glory, right?
Okay, yeah. They never named the Pharaoh in Exodus, did they?
Not in the book, no. And there's different hypotheses about which Pharaoh it's referring to based on the dating that you choose. A lot of people think it's Ramesses II.
That's the only one I've ever heard, yeah, but...
And then, another one, some people say it's Amenhotep.
Oh, okay, I've heard that name before, but I don't know if I've heard it in relation to that story.
Yeah, and an interesting thing to notice, Moses' name, Moses, think of Ramesses, Ramoses. So it actually...
Ra Moses.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually like a royalish name, interestingly enough.
Okay, and Ra was the sun god in Egypt, too, so...
That's right.
Very interesting, something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, Blake, so what about, so I take it you've read the Bible probably more than once.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, I don't know, I like to think I've read everything. I'm one of those people who's probably read every book, but then misses a couple words here and there as I go through it.
Okay. I'm the same way, man, trust me. Sometimes I have to go back and read like 3 pages back because I feel like I wasn't paying attention, but...
Yep.
So... the books that were left out of the Bible, are you familiar with any of them, or do you pay any attention to them?
Are you talking about books, apocryphal books, or Gnostic books of the New Testament? What do you mean?
Well, the Gnostic books of the New Testament, yes. I was like the Book of Enoch, or the story of Adam and Eve, like the continued story of Adam and Eve. Have you heard of any of these?
Yes, I've heard of them. Right.
But do you take any? Do you ever look into them, or do you ever do any research on them, or does it not interest you?
Not really. I haven't really looked much into that, no.
Why is that?
I guess I haven't... So, in general, that seems to fall under the sort of the category of, sort of biblical inspiration type stuff. And in my mind, I'm focused on a couple questions which I think are like the biggest questions of all. So I want to know, does God exist? That seems like a really big starter question. Then I want to, make sure that if God exists, Jesus exists as well. And then I want to figure out, okay, so given that, is there any indication that Jesus stands out like one chosen by God? Right? Because I'm a Christian and I want to know if that's the case. And particularly, did God raise Jesus from the dead? And if I can get sort of that progression of thought, it can take me to believing that Christianity is true without knowing a lot of the nuances in between. So my studies are more focused on like the big questions that I think really affect, salvation, honestly.
Okay, so whether or not it's true is more important than the stories themselves?
Well, it's more the content, the topic. So let's say that the Bible isn't inspired at all. Okay, so you have the Book of Enoch and you've got all the other books, and these are just natural books written by people at, a given time. There's nothing really supernatural about the writing itself. That's fine to say. I still have my reasons for thinking God exists, that Jesus is a real historical figure, that God favored Jesus, that Jesus stands out like one favored by God at least, that Jesus was raised from the dead. My case for those is a secular historical case, and that's what gets me to believe Christianity is true. And there are still people, though, who debate God's existence, and so normally I'm focused on that, things that have to do with the historicity of Jesus' resurrection. That's very much an interest of mine. So it's those core things that I think have to do with salvation that are deserving of the most attention, in my mind.
Okay, so even for like entertainment purposes, you would never pick up the Book of Enoch to read it, or do you think that it would just be like a big waste of your time?
I've read some of that just through quotations, because these are very valuable and telling you sort of about like Jewish expectations, for instance. I think you can get like some Son of Man references in that book, and you can try to understand what was going on in a Jew's mind when he heard the Son of Man. So historically speaking, they're extremely valuable.
Okay, and The Gnostic texts, have you ever looked into any of those?
No, and for those especially, I don't even think those are historically like worthwhile, just because they're so late.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't think they have anything to tell us about the historical Jesus.
They came so far after, yeah, and they had like very, compared to what was in the Bible, very radical ideas, just from what I've heard anyways. I've never read them though, so I can't say for sure.
We don't want to exclude something just because it has radical ideas, so I mean that's fine. But yeah, the fact that they're so late just means that historians don't take them as valuable as historical sources for learning about the historical Jesus and the early Christian movement.
Right. Yeah, I meant radical, like compared to what was already written in the Bible. I mean, it would
contradictory almost.
It would, yeah, almost contradictory to what's already in there. Yeah, so that's why I heard that they actually removed it because people were scared that they were going to start forming the movement after the Gnostic text, and then rather than what was already in place. But
oh yeah, no, it wasn't removed. They never got in the first place.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't removed. You're right. I have a hard time. Like, I like to keep an open mind. Trust me. I've looked into a lot of stuff beyond Christianity. And, some ideas make more sense to me than others. But when I read the Bible, it's, trust me, I love reading the Bible. I read it all the time. Like, pretty much, when I lay in bed with my girlfriend and I say, hey, I'm going to read a book, she pretty much just hands me the Bible because she knows that's what I'm going to read, unless I am into like Edgar Allan Poe and stuff like that, and I will read that every once in a while, but my Bible's my book.
Interesting.
I'm fascinated by the Bible. But here's why I think I'm fascinated by the Bible. Because I look around at all these people that believe the Bible. First of all, more than half of them haven't read it.
Right.
And so I want to get in there and I want to see what is it about this text. Like, for example, actually, one second, Blake. I'm just going to grab my Bible really quick. I just want to read you something from Psalms, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And this might sound completely ridiculous, because I know there's, like, people are moved by the Bible. There are certain verses in the Bible that people quote all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is Psalm 18, starting at verse 7. Do you know this psalm? Or this verse?
No, not by the number.
The earth trembled and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains shook. They trembled because he was angry. Smoke rose from his nostrils, consuming fire came from his mouth, burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him. The dark rain clouds of the sky. Out of the brightness of his presence, clouds advanced, with hailstones and bolts of lightning. The Lord thundered from heaven, the voice of the most resound. He shot his arrows and scattered the enemies, great bolts of lightning, and routed them. The valleys of the sea were exposed, and the foundations of the earth laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of breath from your nostrils. That is awesome to me.
Yeah.
I love, like, that gives me goosebumps reading that, man. And to me, whether or not that is real or not, I know he's punishing the wicked in this, and that's why he came down.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Job 38, when who is this that darkens my counsel? And then he just busts out with, like, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? And
yeah, who are you to question my authority, basically? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a very moving bit of text, and it's like the longest section where God's actually speaking in the Bible.
Right, but here's the thing, though. The difference between me and you is, even though, like I say, I read that and that gives me goosebumps, I believe that somebody wrote that, and I believe that they did an amazing job at writing it, especially in context with the rest of the Bible. I don't know if it was David who wrote it or not. I'll ask you about your opinion on that after. But that does, like, it gives me good feelings, man, and I love reading stuff like that. And I can give you way more examples than that, but I don't want to waste our time here. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that, I guess. So
okay, you're more of an unsure whether God exists, and so you're not agnostic about Christianity. You're just agnostic about whether God exists, right?
I think that if there is a God that exists, I don't think anybody can even begin to try to comprehend him, or it, or whatever. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and you don't want to. And just to clarify what I'm sure you already agree with is, like, so some people will say, look, if God exists, we can't know anything about him.
But of course, that's a self-refuting statement, because that would mean you would know at least one thing about him, namely that you can't know anything about him.
Well, yeah, I guess that would make sense, yes.
A tricky bit of thinking. So, but you want to say something more modest. It's more like if God exists, then like there's a lot that's incomprehensible about him, I guess, right?
Well, it's like if we can create like some form of artificial intelligence, that artificial intelligence will never understand how our brain works. We don't even understand how our brain works. And that's what I think, sort of like, that's my thinking of God.
So what about the hypothesis that God created us in his own image, whereby in his own image we mean in a way such that our values and our thinking broadly reflects God. So in other words, God is a personal agent. God values love and things, and that we have a general desire to love. What about that hypothesis?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? So God, we were created in his image.
And by created in his image, I mean that we were created in a way that we reflect him. In other words, it's kind of like being children of God, where he creates us in a way that reflects him incompletely. So God has knowledge. So like God, we have knowledge and we have power and we have will, but to a lesser degree. So we resemble God in that sense. We're in his image in that sense for sure. Similarly, we have a sort of stewardship that God's given us on earth and responsibilities. And at the same time, we have values that seem to be created by this God. So it would seem on this hypothesis that God creates agents who see X as good because God sees X as good. So that's at least a hypothesis. And it doesn't seem implausible to me. What do you think about that hypothesis?
Okay, so you're saying that we were created in God's image, and we basically experience all the things that God is able to experience. Like we have the same emotions and the same feelings that God has towards us. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, at least analogs, right? I mean, right. The hypothesis is that God created us in his image, so that we can sort of get a feel for what God is like, just in virtue of knowing that God is personal and knowing that we are personal.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense. I mean, if you're coming from that aspect, but the problem there though is that there's everything that you just mentioned. There's a naturalistic explanation for, like for example, like to love. You said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a naturalistic explanation for love.
So what if God created that naturalistic explanation? Because I wasn't talking about how God brought these things about. I'm just saying that, look, God created us in a way, directly or indirectly, such that we resemble him.
Right.
And that would, and because a lot of times people point out, well, God didn't create us in his image. We created him in our image. So there's like this strange, connection between us and God, at least as traditionally defined. But the human intuition that seems built into us is that, yeah, there is a God or gods multiple, and they're personal, and that seems really deeply ingrained in the standard human intuition that's cross-cultural.
Right, but of course it's cross-cultural. But like I said, I believe that there's a naturalistic explanation for that too. Have you ever heard of the rustling in the grass, like the hominids millions of years ago?
Yeah, the hyperactive agency detection device.
Wow, you even know the name of it. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah.
So to me, things like that, like you said, it's kind of built into us.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be the reason is for our own survival that it's built into us, though?
Well, so I mean, a couple different things to go into there. I mean, first, just to establish, there is strong scientific evidence, and it sounds like you're okay with granting this, that humans are built basically to intuit that God or gods exist, right?
I will agree with that, yes.
And yeah, now you want to say is, well, so what? Maybe that's like an evolutionary accident, and specifically, it's this idea that, well, it would be adaptive for humans to be oversensitive to detecting agency in the world. Okay, but I think these are a couple problems with that. On the one hand, there's I don't know if you've heard of it, there's a really recent university study just in 2014, last year here, that really analyzed this intuition and its relationship to other intuitions. And I'm pulling it out here. So, and the point, and I'm going to read the quote to you here. But the point is that even if humans were significantly prone to this hyperactive agency detection, which I'm going to actually say something else about in a second, even if that were the case, this study says that it plays no role in the intuitive appeal or wide acceptance of theism. Okay? So this is a University of British Columbia study. And if you want to Google it later or whatever, the title of the paper is Cognitive Biases Explain Religious Belief, Paranormal Belief, and Belief in Life's Purposes. And it was published in Cognition, issue 129. So here's what it says. It says anthropomorphism, which is, attributing human-like features to objects. Anthropomorphism, operationalized as the tendency to project human-like attributes to non-human entities, was not related to belief in God on our model. In our adult sample, it was not related to belief in God, even in a zero-order correlation. This may be surprising given theories that argue that anthropomorphism and hyperactive agency detection are an underlying feature of all supernatural belief, and they cite Barrett 2000, 2004, 2008, Guthrie 1993, 1996. And they go on to say, given influential theories that place the origin of religious belief in anthropomorphism, it was surprising that the path from anthropomorphism to belief in God was non-significant. One might wonder whether this, and they talk about one possible objection, and they say, well, it turns out we evaluate that in depth, and that doesn't explain it either. And so in the end, even if humans have hyperactive agency detection, it doesn't play any function in the in widespread intuition that God exists, interestingly.
Okay, do you think that there is a connection between the fear of death and the belief in God?
I haven't read anything on that, so I don't know. I don't think so, because it seems like children, even when they have no concept of death, are intuiting theism.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take a quote from my guest last week, Phil. Would they still have that intuition if they didn't have that religious foundation beneath them?
Yes, I think so, and that's why religion is widespread. Religion is cross-cultural. Remember, we mentioned this before. You said you agreed with it, that humans have this built in. Basically, it's genetic. Humans are genetically wired such that they're predisposed to believe in God. Yeah. But even if you take away that influence, according to several studies, even if you were raised up in an atheistic home, you would have this inclination to believe in God, and that's all I was talking about.
But if you were raised in an atheistic home, even though you weren't exposed to religion or God, there would still be. I mean, you still have like a TV, or there would be something that mentions it, right? I mean, it would still be brought up in some way, shape, or form.
Even what I'm trying to say is that it's hardwired in us, such that even if you didn't encounter that type of thing, you would naturally form the belief in God or gods.
Do we know that for sure?
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can list to you the different studies that say that that's the conclusion.
Because my thinking would be, when we're very young, we have no clue about life. Where do we come from? How did we get here? These are very tough questions, and we start asking these questions at a very young age. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody brings up the concept of God, pretty much right away you're like, oh, without even I'm talking about when you're a young child, right, and you don't know much about anything. So then even if somebody says, oh, that's not true, you're growing up in a house full of atheists, and you could think, yeah, that's not true. Well, you've already heard about it. You've already entertained that idea. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So would that do you think that would have anything to do with it? But I know what you're saying, that if you're raised in the woods by wolves, you'd still have that intuition.
Right. Yeah. So let me read from Justin Barrett, who's a psychology professor, and he's a researcher at the Center for Anthropology and Mind and the Institute for Cognitive and Evolutionary Anthropology at Oxford. He says, quote, "The new science of religion begs to differ. Children are born primed to see God at work all around them and don't need to be indoctrinated to believe in him." He goes on to say, "Drawing upon research in developmental psychology, cognitive anthropology, and particularly the cognitive science of religion. He goes on to say, blah, 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 that religion comes nearly as naturally to us as language. From birth, children show certain predilections. But adults generally, and he goes on to say, but adults generally do believe in God. And he says that such belief begins in childhood and typically endures into adulthood, places it in the same class as believing in the permanence of solid objects, the continuity of time, the predictability of natural laws, the fact that causes precede effects, that people have minds, and he just goes on from there. So, and this is in part from a big University of Oxford study. It was a 3-year international research project, again, based out of Oxford, and it was like a multi-million-dollar project, 57 researchers, and it was conducted over 40 different studies across 20 different countries, representing a diverse range of cultures. Wow. And this is the big conclusion is like believing in God is kind of like believing that a past exists. It's very natural.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess that would make sense, man. I'd have to look into the research myself. I'm not a scientist or anything, though, so all I could really do is go in and read it. But I really don't really have any more questions for you, man. Actually, yeah, I do. Let's get back to the. I was talking about Psalms, and I didn't really want to get into the historicity of the Bible too much, but I have read David Fitzgerald's books. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if you have. Have you read Nailed by chance?
Yep, I've read Nailed.
Okay, and what was your opinion on Nailed? And before you begin, I actually listened to a debate that David Fitzgerald just had.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, what was your opinion on that book?
Let me first say that I would love to talk to David Fitzgerald because he sounds like an awesome, hilarious person.
He does. I know he's very entertaining, a historian or not. Yes.
Yeah, and I also think he knows a lot. He knows plenty. At the same time, I don't think that his scholarship is up to snuff. And I don't say that, of course, to be mean at all. But I mean, yeah, if you his book. So down, are you in Dallas?
I am in Canada.
Okay, you're in Canada. Okay, so here in Dallas, and I kind of wanted to tell this to David, but I didn't. So we've got Dallas Theological Seminary just a couple minutes down the road, and there are 4 floors of highly academic books. Like half the pages are like small print, footnotes. And the whole, you've got a gigantic bibliography, and this is like, Princeton Theological Seminary, Cambridge. This is like heavy, heavy stuff. And you look at David Fitzgerald's book, and you look at Jesus mythicism books in general, and they're just Richard Carrier's, got a book out that's got, that at least looks semi-academic. Thankfully, Robert Price has some stuff that's good as well. But certainly David Fitzgerald's book, I know it's popular level, but you can tell just by looking at it that this would never make its way into an academic library. The text is huge, and the pages are small, and there's no footnotes, and I just think that says a lot. I know it's kind of a mean thing to say, but the arguments I think are bad as well. So let me give you an example. His whole case, a big portion of his case rests on Peter not being Cephas in 1 Corinthians 15. It says, Jesus was buried, Jesus died, he was buried, he was raised on the 3rd day, and then he appeared to Cephas and then to the 12. And there's several wrong things he says there, but just for example, he says that Cephas isn't Peter, and he tells us that we ought to ignore the book of John, which says that they're the same. What he doesn't seem to realize, and so just so you know, Cephas and Peter both translate to rock. Okay? But he wants to say that both of these apostles are different people. And the other thing he doesn't seem to know is that this isn't like a normal first name. This isn't like Joe or something in 2 different languages. This is like calling someone the refrigerator. Okay? So he's called right. So you have an apostle. He's named first as a first, Cephas, and he's called, and they're both called the refrigerator. And he wants to say, despite all this attestation, that they're different persons. It's stuff like that just makes everybody and it's full of it. He gets other, like, just very basic facts wrong. Like, he gets the details about the Sea of Galilee completely wrong. Just like lots of stuff like that. That he'll never, like, he doesn't have a degree. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, he doesn't have a degree in any of this. So I don't think he probably, like, knows, like, in general, a lot of, I don't know if he knows more, but he could very well know more. He's a super knowledgeable guy. Super awesome. I just don't think that his book is going to be taken seriously ever. That's all.
Okay, well, to be fair, I really don't know much about the history of the Bible.
Yeah.
Just from what I read online, and like you say, I did read his book. When I listened to the debate that he did with John Christie, John was actually making a lot of good points, and it kind of had me scratching my chin going, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm not going to say he's wrong in his book. I can't disagree with everything he said in his book, but like I say, I don't know for sure. It was entertaining, and it put ideas into my head. So
Yeah. I mean, part of me just wants to sit down and have a conversation with him just because he sounds like such a cool guy.
I would, you know what? Maybe I'll get him on the show, and I'll get you on sometime. That would be awesome.
That would be fun.
That would be awesome for my show too. But
like, I can see the gear. I can hear the gears turning.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, Blake, we're at about an hour now.
Okay.
It was awesome talking to you, man. There's probably, like, as soon as I'm done here, I'm probably gonna think of like 100 more questions that I would have asked you, but that's okay. Maybe you'll come back on some other time.
Yeah, I'd love to explore your beliefs further, just on God and these types of topics. I'd love to sort of get in your head and figure out how you got to where you're at.
Oh, a lot of answers are gonna be I don't know. You were to ask me, honestly. The thing is, with the Bible, you have all these historians pointing and saying that it's not true. Then you have all these historians pointing and saying that it is true. It's like, I'm being torn in 6 different directions by all these different historians, and I don't know what to believe.
Yeah. By the way, that's like a good historical principle is to believe the stuff that they all do agree on, and there's quite a bit that they do agree on.
Okay, I'd have to do more research though too. That's another thing too, is I haven't done enough research. I have read the book, but other than that, but yeah, like I say, man, it's a fascinating book, and I can totally see why there is like over 2 billion people on the planet right now that 100% believe in this book. And not even this, man, but like I'm not trying to compare it to the Quran, but they're very similar stories. I mean, it's yeah, I'm not actually going to get into that conversation. Maybe we'll save that for next time. But but anyways, Blake, it was really nice talking to you, man.
Likewise, Rosco, I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on the show, and it was actually a really fun conversation.
Likewise, I agree.
I hope I didn't ask. I hope none of the questions were too tough for you. Or
no, it was good stuff. Perfect conversation.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks a lot, man, and have a good night.
Likewise, thank you.
It's interesting. There was a time where they just used the word atheist. And now you are hearing humanist, nuns, skeptics, free thinkers. And you will talk to leaders within the atheist community, and they'll say, this is all the same thing. These are people that don't believe in God. They're just scared to say the word. But then we met a lot of these folks. Either they don't believe in God or they don't feel an affiliation to religion. And they like a sort of softer, gentler approach because there's such a stigma on that word atheist. People think devil worshiper, no moral compass.
It doesn't necessarily mean that. You actually talked to a priest, or is a preacher who started a church for atheists.
Yes, and you know what? Before we even met with him, because as he likes to say, he's out of the closet, okay? But there are more
atheism.
Oh yeah, but there are more. But it's interesting. A lot of these atheists compare themselves to gay and lesbian, saying it's just like that. It's living in the closet, not able to be my real self, and it's torturous. Right. I mean, you want to take? All right, this is Jerry DeWitt.
Okay.
3 years ago, Jerry DeWitt lost his faith.
It felt like living a lie.
And made the hardest choice in his life.
The real heartbreak, soul-crushing heartbreak, was realizing I had to give up the ministry.
The news that DeWitt had become an atheist sent shockwaves through the community, and the fallout was like a punch to the gut.
You lost it all. Your job, your congregation, your wife left. You lost all your money. So why stay here in Louisiana? Why not go somewhere that's more progressive, open-minded?
If we're going to make things better, we got to make things better where things need to be made better.
And you go into his church and you feel like you're in church, but instead of, can I get an amen? He says, can I get a Darwin? But Don, we also talk to preachers who don't have the guts to come out, and they're preaching every Sunday, and their congregation doesn't know that they don't believe. There's something called the Clergy Project. More than 600 leaders in the faith community are struggling with the fact that they are preaching, but they don't believe in God.
So that's going to do it. That's going to do it for the show tonight, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. I really enjoyed our guest, Blake Giunta, the Christian Apologist. And before we go, there's just something I want to say. Whether you're an atheist, an agnostic, a theist, a Muslim, a Christian, a Buddhist, whatever your belief, we all live on the same planet, guys. We all have to get along, or we all have to try to get along. So if you have some beliefs that I might consider to be radical, I will try my best to understand them. I know it can be hard a lot of times, especially with the disagreements between atheists and theists when it comes to things like pro-choice and things like this. But we need to try, guys. And this show is designed so that you will not be left in the dark. No matter how radical society might consider your beliefs, I am allowing you to come on. I'm giving you a platform. Come on my show. Let the world know what you think. And if I have the tough questions for you, it's only because I'm trying to understand. And I'm trying to help the world better understand. So yeah, that's going to do it for tonight, guys. Join us next week. We will have another amazing guest. I don't know who it will be yet. But yeah, remember to keep an open mind, guys. Peace.
And I got a question from one of the people that are working on their masters in particle physics. We were talking about the Higgs particle. He actually brought it up, and we were talking about how it was kind of obvious that he was looking to put me on the spot. And if I hadn't if I hadn't have read the searches for exotic, stable, massive particles with the Atlas experiment in CERN, for example, I wouldn't have been able to answer his questions. He knew the answers. I was pretty sure, but he wanted to test me, and those kind of tests are constant. So.
Oh yeah, so you're just trying to stay on top of your game then, basically.
Yeah.
See, I have no problem with saying that I have no fucking clue if somebody asks me something.
Oh no, me neither. And that's it needs to be honest. It needs to be honest. But the more answers you can give someone, the better.